It was a bright afternoon when a group of bikers decided to take a ride through the city, just to enjoy the sun and the feeling of freedom that came with the open road. The streets were bustling with people, the sound of cars honking, vendors calling out their offers, and children playing near the corners. As they turned a sharp corner, one of the bikers noticed a young boy standing beside a small rusty bicycle, holding a cardboard sign that read something about selling his bike. The boy's clothes were old and worn, his shoes were patched, and he seemed a little too quiet for someone his age. He was watching everyone with hopeful eyes, yet a hint of fear lingered there too, as if he had seen people ignore him for a long time. Curiosity got the better of the bikers, and they slowed down. One of them, a tall man with a kind face, called out to the boy, asking him how much he wanted for the bike. The boy looked up, startled, and hesitated for a moment. He muttered a price barely above a whisper, and then quickly added almost as an afterthought that his mother hadn't eaten in 2 days. The words were simple, but they hit the bikers harder than anything else. It wasn't just a plea to buy a bike. It was a silent cry for help. The group stopped completely, leaving their engines to idle. The boy shuffled his feet nervously, unsure if these strangers would care or walk away like so many others had. One of the bikers stepped closer and asked gently why he was selling the bike. The boy's voice trembled as he explained that he needed to buy food for his mother. She worked hard, but sometimes she didn't have enough, and he wanted to help. The bikers could see the sincerity in his eyes, the way his small hands gripped the bike tightly, as if it were the only thing he could offer to make a difference. It wasn't common for the bikers to stop for street vendors, especially children, but something about this boy was different. His story was raw and real, not a tale invented to make strangers feel guilty. They asked him more questions, keeping their tone soft and non-threatening. They learned that the boy lived with his mother in a small, cramped house on the edge of the city. His father had left long ago, and there was no other family nearby to help them. The boy had tried selling small things before, but most people ignored him or scolded him for being a nuisance. Yet here he was, still standing, still hoping. As the boy spoke, the bikers noticed the lines of worry etched into his young face. He wasn't just a child selling a bike. He was a child carrying the weight of survival on his shoulders. The sun reflected off his eyes, which were slightly red from holding back tears, and the bikers felt a pang of guilt. They thought about their own families, their own children, and the comfort of knowing that someone cared for them. This boy didn't have that luxury, and it shook them. One of the bikers, a woman who had grown up helping in her neighborhood, crouched down to the boy's level. She asked if he was hungry, if his mother was okay, and if he needed immediate help. The boy nodded, explaining that it had been 2 days since they last had a proper meal. He had tried to make small snacks from whatever was left in the house, but it wasn't enough. He wanted to sell his bike quickly so he could bring something home for his mother. The bikers exchanged glances, silently agreeing that they couldn't just ride away. They could see the determination in the boy's posture, the way he refused to cry out in the middle of the street, the way he held his head high despite the fear and fatigue. It was a quiet bravery that few adults possessed, and it demanded respect. They decided to buy the bike, but not just to give the boy money. They wanted to understand more about his situation and see how they could help. The boy's eyes widened with surprise and relief when they handed him the money. For a brief moment he couldn't believe it, fumbling with the coins in his hand. He looked at the bikers, trying to find a hint of mockery, but found only genuine concern and kindness. He muttered a quiet thank you, almost shyly, and began to explain where he lived, inviting them to see his mother. At first they hesitated, unsure if they were stepping into something bigger than they could handle. But the sincerity in the boy's voice was compelling. They followed him through narrow streets and alleyways, past small shops and homes, noticing the gradual change in the neighborhood. The houses were older, some with peeling paint, some barely standing. The streets were quieter here, and there was a sense of struggle that was different from the busy parts of the city. The boy led them to a small run-down home, its windows dusty, the door slightly hanging on its hinges. He knocked softly, and a frail woman appeared. She looked tired, her eyes lined with worry, and when she saw strangers standing behind her son, she stiffened. The boy quickly explained that the bikers had bought his bike to help them, and that they wanted to bring food and medicine. The mother's eyes filled with tears, both from relief and from disbelief. She hadn't expected anyone to stop for them, let alone offer help without asking for anything in return. The bikers carefully placed the groceries they had bought on the small table in the corner of the room. They offered the mother water, basic medicines, and some ready-to-eat snacks. She tried to refuse, feeling embarrassed, but the bikers insisted gently. They could see the gratitude in her eyes, and it was a feeling that went beyond words. The boy watched his mother take the food, a small smile breaking through the worry on his face. For the first time in days, he felt a sense of hope, a sense that maybe things could get better. The bikers didn't just hand over aid. They listened, they understood, and they treated the family with dignity. They didn't make them feel like charity cases. They made them feel seen. As the afternoon turned into evening, the bikers realized that this encounter had changed them too. What began as a casual ride through the city had become a moment of connection, of humanity, and of responsibility. They promised the boy and his mother that they would return, that they would bring more help, and that they wouldn't let them face this struggle alone. The boy nodded, still clutching the coins from the bike sale, feeling a mixture of hope and cautious optimism. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that for this moment he wasn't alone. As they left, the bikers glanced back at the small home, the boy waving timidly, his mother standing at the doorway. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried so much weight. They rode away quietly, each lost in thought, realizing that sometimes the smallest encounters could leave the biggest marks on a person's life. The boy had sold his bike, but in return, he had given the bikers a story that they would carry with them forever. It was a reminder that behind every face on the street there was a life, a struggle, and a story waiting to be seen. And in that quiet afternoon, with the sun casting long shadows on the streets, a young boy and a group of bikers discovered something more valuable than money or possessions. They discovered compassion, hope, and the power of human connection. The boy's journey had just begun, and the bikers knew that they were now part of a story much bigger than themselves, a story that had the power to change lives, including their own. The boy led the bikers into the small house, his steps careful and quiet, almost as if he feared the walls themselves might judge him. The room they entered was barely furnished, with a worn-out sofa that had long lost its shape, a small wooden table with scratches on every corner, and a tiny kitchen that smelled faintly of old bread and unwashed dishes. The mother was sitting on the sofa, her hands folded in her lap, eyes tired but alert as she watched the strangers follow her son inside. She looked older than her years, her hair tied back in a messy bun and her clothes worn thin. The bikers set down the groceries and some basic supplies they had brought. They began talking softly, trying to understand the full situation without overwhelming the mother. They asked the boy to tell them more about their life, how long they had been struggling, and what kind of help they might need. The boy hesitated at first, unsure if he should share so much with people he had just met, but the gentle tone of the bikers encouraged him. He explained that his mother worked long hours cleaning houses and sometimes at small cafes, but the pay was barely enough for rent and the most basic necessities. Food often came last. On some days she would go without, just to make sure he had something to eat. He remembered waking up to find her trying to make a small loaf of bread stretch for both of them. Her eyes tired, but her hands still moving to prepare something. One of the bikers, a man with a calm voice, asked the mother if this was true. She nodded slowly, a faint smile appearing, not from pride but from the strange relief of someone finally listening without judgment. She spoke softly, explaining that they had managed for years, doing everything they could, but sometimes the struggle became unbearable. Her voice trembled slightly when she talked about the hardest days, and the bikers felt the weight of her exhaustion, the invisible burden she carried daily. The boy chimed in occasionally, adding small details that only a child would notice. The empty cupboards, the tiny garden that rarely produced anything, the cold nights when the heater barely kept the room warm. The bikers listened carefully, taking mental notes, not to judge or question, but to understand. They could see the strength in both mother and son, a determination to survive that went beyond words. They weren't just witnessing struggle, they were witnessing courage. After a while, the mother excused herself to get a glass of water, and the boy began talking more freely. He explained that sometimes he would skip school lunch to save money, or go to the library to read books because he couldn't afford magazines or games. He spoke about the small joys he found, riding his bike even though he was trying to sell it, and helping his mother cook small meals. The bikers were struck by the resilience in his words, the way he framed hardships as challenges he wanted to overcome, rather than problems that crushed him. The bikers wanted to do more than just provide food that day. They asked if there were other needs, things that could make their daily life easier. The mother mentioned that medicine for her occasional illnesses was expensive, and sometimes she had to choose between buying medicine or buying food. The boy added that he sometimes wished for a new pair of shoes or clothes that didn't have holes, but he never asked because he knew it wasn't realistic. The bikers nodded, understanding the depth of what the boy and his mother were going through. They decided they would help them get a little more stability, not just temporary relief. They talked about ways to support them, not in a way that would make them dependent, but in a way that could give them breathing space. The bikers suggested helping the mother find local programs that provided food or financial support, and perhaps even ways for her to find work that paid better or had more regular hours. They also offered to help the boy with school supplies and any other needs that would help him continue his education without stress. The boy's eyes lit up at the thought of being able to focus on school, something he had missed because of worry and responsibility at home. As they spoke, the mother quietly observed the bikers' intentions. She could sense the sincerity in their voices, the lack of judgment, and the genuine desire to help. For the first time in a long while, she felt a small flicker of hope. She realized that perhaps there were people in the world who would care without expecting anything in return. She watched her son's face as he talked to the bikers, noticing the cautious optimism in his expression. It was a rare sight, and it made her feel a bit lighter inside. The conversation flowed naturally, like old friends catching up rather than strangers discussing charity. The bikers asked about small things too, what the boy liked to do after school, what kind of foods he and his mother enjoyed, and even what dreams he had for the future. The boy hesitated when he mentioned dreams, because for so long survival had taken precedence, but he finally admitted that he wanted to finish school and maybe become someone who could help others in need, just like the bikers were helping them. The bikers smiled, quietly impressed by his maturity and insight. As the evening approached, the bikers knew it was time to leave, but they didn't want to go without offering some immediate help. They handed over more groceries, including fresh vegetables, rice, bread, and some milk. They also included a few small treats for the boy, things he hadn't had in a long time. The boy's hands shook as he received them, and he glanced at his mother, who nodded softly, her eyes glistening with tears. It was a small victory, but a meaningful one. Before leaving, the bikers exchanged numbers with the mother and gave her contact information for local support programs. They promised to return to check on them and to help them find a way to steady their lives. The boy hugged one of the bikers, feeling a connection he hadn't felt with strangers before. He felt seen, heard, and cared for, and that was a feeling that would stay with him long after that day. As they walked back to their bikes, the bikers were quiet, each lost in thought. They had seen hardship before, but this encounter felt different. It wasn't just about poverty. It was about the human spirit, resilience, and the quiet strength of people who face struggles daily without complaining. They realized that their simple act of buying a bike had opened a door to something bigger, something meaningful. The boy stood at the doorstep, waving as the bikers rode away, clutching the groceries and a small sense of hope. His mother watched him, smiling faintly, feeling a weight lifted off her shoulders, even if just a little. That evening they shared a meal together, simple but enough, and for the first time in days they didn't feel hungry or alone. The bikers had left a mark on their lives, and in return, the boy and his mother reminded the bikers of the quiet strength that existed in the world, often hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice. The boy went to bed that night with a small sense of relief. Tomorrow he would still face challenges and life wouldn't suddenly become easy, but the thought that there were people who cared gave him courage. His mother sat beside him for a moment, holding his hand, grateful for the strangers who had come into their lives and turned an ordinary day into something extraordinary. That day they learned that kindness, even from strangers, had the power to change the direction of a life, and the bikers, too, left with a renewed understanding of compassion, responsibility, and the ripple effect of a single act of goodness. The following morning the boy woke early, the memory of the biker's kindness still fresh in his mind. He looked around the small bare room he shared with his mother, feeling a small but growing sense of hope. The groceries they had received were neatly arranged on the table, and he knew that for at least a few days his mother wouldn't go hungry. He quietly tiptoed to the kitchen to help prepare a simple breakfast. The mother noticed his energy and determination, her heart swelling with pride. She felt a small relief in knowing that someone had cared enough to help them, and it gave her strength she hadn't felt in weeks. Later that day, the boy couldn't stop talking about the bikers. He described their kind faces, the way they listened, and how they had treated him and his mother with respect. His mother smiled, trying to hide her emotion, but she couldn't stop the tears from forming in her eyes. She felt a rare gratitude, the kind that made her feel supported in a world that often seemed indifferent. She knew that their lives hadn't changed completely, but the small act of kindness had opened a door. The bikers returned that afternoon as promised. They brought more groceries, basic medicines, and a few small toys for the boy. The mother welcomed them warmly, though she remained cautious, afraid that such kindness might not last. The bikers spoke softly, explaining that they had contacted local community centers and charities that could provide ongoing support. They wanted to make sure the mother and son had a more secure path forward, not just temporary relief. The boy eagerly shared details of his daily life, the school he attended, the books he loved, and the chores he did at home. He spoke about his mother working long hours, cleaning homes and serving tables, and how he sometimes wished he could help more. The bikers listened attentively, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than pity. They wanted to understand the full picture, not just offer quick fixes. They asked if there were ways they could help with school supplies, transportation, or anything that could make life a little easier. The mother, at first hesitant, began opening up about her struggles. She shared the difficulty of balancing work, rent, and food, and how she often went without to make sure her son had something. The bikers didn't judge or offer unsolicited advice. They simply listened and offered assistance where it was most needed. The boy watched, inspired by the way strangers could care so deeply about people they had never met before. It gave him a sense of trust he had rarely experienced. After a while, one of the bikers suggested they all take a short walk together. They wanted to see if there were other needs the boy and his mother had overlooked, perhaps small things that could make daily life easier. As they walked, the mother shared her worries about the house, leaking faucets, a broken window, and the constant struggle to keep the small space warm in winter. The bikers took note, promising to help with repairs and improvements that could make the house more comfortable and safe. They also explored ways to provide ongoing support. One biker mentioned a local program that offered meals for families in need, while another suggested ways for the mother to find more stable work opportunities. The boy's eyes lit up at the thought of not having to worry constantly about money or food. The bikers emphasized that their goal was to empower the family, to help them build a small safety net that could grow over time. When they returned home, the bikers began helping with small chores around the house. They fixed a leaking pipe in the kitchen and tightened the hinges on the old door. The mother watched, grateful but still cautious, unsure how to express her thanks adequately. The boy helped enthusiastically, eager to learn and contribute. He felt a newfound sense of purpose, realizing that even small actions could make a difference. Over the next few days, the bikers continued their visits. They brought more groceries and supplies, and they also connected the mother to local community resources that could provide additional support. The boy started attending school regularly, his mind less burdened by worry. He discovered that learning could be enjoyable when he didn't have to constantly think about survival. He began sharing stories from school with his mother, who listened attentively, her pride growing with each new accomplishment. The bikers also encouraged the boy to engage in small activities that brought him joy, like riding his bike around the neighborhood or helping neighbors with errands. They wanted him to experience life beyond survival, to feel that he could enjoy simple pleasures without guilt. Slowly, the boy's confidence grew, and he began smiling more, laughing sometimes at small jokes or moments of fun. The mother noticed a change too. With the immediate pressure of hunger and survival alleviated, she found herself able to focus on her own health and well-being. She began taking short walks with her son, enjoying the sun and fresh air, something they hadn't done in a long time. The bikers' visits became a source of support, not just material help but emotional encouragement that strengthened their spirits. One afternoon, the bikers decided to introduce a small community project. They organized a neighborhood cleanup and invited the boy and his mother to participate. At first, the boy was shy, but with encouragement, he joined in enthusiastically. The mother followed, feeling a sense of community and belonging she hadn't experienced in years. Together, they helped tidy the streets, plant small flowers, and repaint a few walls. The simple act of giving back to their neighborhood instilled a sense of pride and hope, showing them that even in struggle, they could contribute positively to the world around them. As the days turned into weeks, the boy and his mother began to notice small improvements in their lives. Their home became more organized and comfortable, thanks to the bikers' assistance and guidance. Meals were more consistent, and the boy could focus on schoolwork without the constant worry of what he and his mother would eat. The mother, too, felt empowered by the support. Learning that asking for help didn't mean weakness, it meant building a foundation for a better future. The bikers continued visiting regularly, sometimes bringing supplies, sometimes offering advice, and sometimes just spending time with the family. The boy began sharing stories about his school and friends, while the mother spoke about her small victories at work. Each visit strengthened their connection, and the family started to feel that they were part of a larger community willing to support them. Through all of this, the boy's hope grew. He began dreaming again, imagining a future where he could continue his education, help his mother, and perhaps even assist other children in need. The bikers had shown him that one act of kindness could ripple outward, changing not just his life but the lives of those around him. The mother, too, felt a renewed determination to provide a better life for her son, knowing that they had allies who genuinely cared. By the end of Part 3, the family had experienced a transformation, not a complete solution to all their struggles, but a foundation of hope, support, and empowerment. The boy and his mother realized that they were not alone, that kindness existed even in unexpected places, and that together with the bikers and their community, they could slowly build a better life. The journey was just beginning, but the small steps they had taken together promised a brighter, more secure future, filled with hope, resilience, and the power of human connection. As weeks passed, the boy and his mother slowly began to see life differently. The small gestures of kindness from the bikers had built a bridge of trust and hope. Each visit brought a new sense of stability. The groceries and supplies were no longer just temporary relief. They became a reminder that someone cared and that their struggles could be eased with help and guidance. The mother began exploring the resources the bikers had suggested. She visited a local community center that provided affordable meals and support for families. The staff welcomed her warmly, offering advice and assistance, and she realized she was not alone. There were programs designed to support people like her, and she could finally access help without feeling embarrassed or ashamed. The boy, too, was noticing small changes. He no longer had to carry the burden of constant worry about food or money while trying to focus on school. His teachers began noticing that he was more attentive and happier in class. He started bringing small stories from school home, talking excitedly about lessons, friends, and the little achievements he earned. Each evening, he and his mother shared a quiet meal, and for the first time in many months, they could eat without the lingering anxiety of not having enough. The bikers continued visiting regularly. Some days they brought groceries and supplies, and other days they simply spent time talking and listening. They encouraged the boy to ride his bike again, not as something to sell, but as a source of joy. He started exploring the neighborhood after school, waving to neighbors and slowly building a sense of normalcy. The mother noticed the change in her son, the way his eyes brightened when he spoke, the way he laughed more easily, and the way he shared his small dreams about the future. One of the bikers suggested organizing a small fundraiser in the community. The idea was simple: to gather resources that could provide longer-term support for the boy and his mother, and possibly other families in similar situations. The mother was initially hesitant, worried about asking for help, but the bikers assured her that it would be done respectfully, without exposing them or causing discomfort. They reached out to local businesses, friends, and neighbors, sharing the boy's story carefully, emphasizing his resilience and courage. Slowly, contributions began to arrive. People donated groceries, clothing, school supplies, and even small amounts of money. Some neighbors offered services like tutoring for the boy or helping the mother with job opportunities. The boy watched in awe as strangers came together to support him and his mother, and he felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. The mother, too, was overwhelmed with gratitude, realizing that her small struggles were being seen and supported by a community that cared. As the support grew, the bikers helped the mother apply for more stable employment opportunities. They guided her through applications and interviews, offering encouragement and practical advice. She eventually secured a part-time job with regular hours and a slightly better income. It wasn't enough to solve all their problems, but it was a step toward stability. She could afford proper meals for herself and her son, and even save a little for emergencies. The boy's excitement was palpable. He could see the tangible results of kindness and effort, and it inspired him to work harder at school and help his mother wherever possible. The bikers also made sure the boy had everything he needed for school. They bought him a new backpack, books, and stationery, and they checked in with his teachers to understand how they could further support him. The boy's confidence soared as he realized that his education mattered and that there were people rooting for him. For the first time, he believed that he could pursue his dreams and that the future held possibilities beyond mere survival. The mother began participating in local community events, slowly building friendships and a support network. She started attending workshops about budgeting, nutrition, and parenting, finding guidance and reassurance in the company of other parents. The bikers encouraged her every step of the way, reminding her that seeking help was not weakness but strength. The boy, too, joined community activities, learning about teamwork, responsibility, and the joy of contributing to something larger than himself. Together, they started small projects at home. They planted a few vegetables in a tiny garden patch outside their house, learning to care for the plants and harvest them. The boy and his mother took pride in this small achievement, enjoying the fruits of their labor. The house, once bare and worn, began to feel more like a home. The walls were painted in bright colors, the furniture repaired, and the rooms organized in a way that made life more comfortable. Each improvement, no matter how small, was a victory that brought hope and stability. The bikers encouraged the boy to continue dreaming and planning for the future. They shared stories of their own challenges and triumphs, teaching him that life could be difficult, but perseverance, kindness, and community support could make a significant difference. The boy started thinking about ways he could give back, inspired by the help he had received. He imagined helping other children in the neighborhood, tutoring them, or sharing what he had learned about resilience and hope. Months passed, and the family's life began to stabilize in ways they hadn't imagined possible. The mother could cook regular meals, afford proper clothing, and even save for unexpected expenses. The boy excelled in school, his teachers noting his improved focus and confidence. The bikers continued their visits, sometimes to check on progress, sometimes to lend a hand, and sometimes just to share stories and laughter. The bond they had formed went beyond charity. It was a relationship built on trust, respect, and shared humanity. One afternoon, the bikers organized a small celebration to acknowledge the boy's hard work in school and the mother's perseverance. Neighbors and community members joined, bringing food and small gifts. The boy and his mother were touched by the outpouring of support. They had never imagined that their struggles would be met with such compassion. The event was a reminder that even in difficult times, kindness could create ripples of change, touching many lives beyond the initial act. The boy, standing beside his mother, realized that their journey was still ongoing, but the path ahead was brighter and more hopeful. He knew that challenges would come, but he also knew that they had support, guidance, and the strength to face difficulties together. The mother felt a renewed sense of purpose, determined to provide a better life for her son and to participate actively in the community that had embraced them. Through it all, the bikers remained a constant presence, not as heroes but as friends and mentors. They had shown that small acts of kindness could grow into transformative change. The boy and his mother had learned that hope was not a fleeting feeling, but a powerful force that could guide them through hardship. They discovered the importance of resilience, community, and the belief that life could improve with effort and care. By the end of Part 4, the boy and his mother had moved from survival mode to a more stable and hopeful life. They had experienced the power of kindness and community, and they were beginning to envision a future filled with possibility. The bikers had not just helped them, they had shown them a path to empowerment, teaching them that even small steps could lead to meaningful change. The family's journey was far from over. but they now faced it with courage, hope, and the knowledge that they were never truly alone.